Hey y'all, Bree here. I just remember when we first got engaged, really when we were dating, I said, I put a plate out for you.
And she put a plate out.
How did we navigate that? How we navigate the good things and the bad things. So on our YouTube channel, we just kind of talk about that. Give y'all some insight, not trying to give advice, because we know marriage can be this process that we go through. We just want to invite y'all along in our process. So just subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we hope that we can be just encouragement for y'all, and we hope y'all watch.
What is up, y'all? My name is Josh.
Hey y'all, I'm Bree.
Yes, and we are so excited that y'all are hanging with us for a little bit today.
Yes.
And today we are going to be talking about how to communicate unclear goals.
Yeah, which is a great topic. So Josh did this very well. He would go around asking everybody he knew about who was married about, like how to navigate marriage. I think for me, I went to specific people. Like I went constantly to the same people, starting off. So like my Mimi and Poppy, they've been married for, I don't know, like 40, 50 years. And I would just have like a lot of conversation with them, trying to navigate like, hey, like how do y'all communicate through this and that? And so like them, they would give us advice, but we are just saying that we're not trying to give y'all advice. We're just trying to help y'all, just kind of give you an insight of how we are navigating marriage.
Insights, not advice. Insights, not advice is why we kind of have these conversations and why we like to kind of talk about this. And in these last few conversations, we've just been talking about kind of how to navigate career, passions, goals. What does that look like for us within the first year of marriage, and what kind of insights we've seen on that. Again, we think we are not perfect examples, but we are living examples. Yes. So we just want to dive in. We're going to dive in from there. So how to communicate unclear goals.
Yes.
Now, this was a good one because I feel like I remember when I remember back when we were dating, and I think even so after we got married, there'd be times where I'm just like, where you would ask me like, what's next? Like, but like, what are we doing? Like, where are we going? Like,
yes, why are we doing this?
And I could have swore I clearly communicated to you what the next few steps were as we navigate getting married. Let's just say whatever, we wanted to get married. Okay, there's going to be getting out of debt. Then we're going to be thinking about emergency savings, whatever the case may be. Like there was this thing, but like I remember you constantly asking that. And I think truthfully a little bit, I was
annoyed,
intimidated
by
that question, because I was like, yo, like I can't sometimes clearly articulate where it is that we're going.
Yeah.
But I think so I think that's kind of where the conversation comes, where it's just like, man, like how do you communicate something that you don't see the full picture of?
Yes. And I think in essence, he did communicate where we were going. But I feel like you communicate the big jumps, but I like the details. Like, and meaning like, I want to know, okay, if we're getting out of debt, yes, I know we're getting out of debt. And I know that there are steps to get out of debt. But also like there are unexpected things that happen or things that come up. Okay, these things have come up. Are we still trying to get out of debt or are we not? So I think like my confusion or miscommunication was the fact that like I knew the goal. I knew where we were going, the next step. But it was the small details or like the simple shift of a detail. I'm like, are we still going that direction, friends?
And I think that's a good, I'm going to deviate for 2 seconds, but I think that's a good point, because I think also, as one casts vision for something, you become the referee for that. Because I think oftentimes when you would ask, like, okay, are we still doing this? I'd be like, yeah, like, yeah, we still, not in the negative way, but I'd be like, yeah, we still doing it. But like, it's almost like you, like, in a good way of like challenging, like, is this really what we're doing? But is this really what we're doing? And as whoever it is, as the person that's casting whatever the vision is, it's like you're always gonna have to be the referee for that, and you're not like you can't just assume that the other person knows. Is this out of bounds, or
Yeah.
are we still kind of in lane? So that's deviating a little bit from it, but I think that's just something that I thought about.
Well, and I think too, it at least for me, it's a reassurance. Like I need to be reassured that that is still happening because I like to remember people's words. I like to remember how they said them, why they said them, and what context they said them, and I'm gonna refer back to them.
You will.
I will, because like for me, I just need to make sure that like that's my way of understanding and like trying to be on the same page.
Correct, and you will, not in a positive way, not in a, I mean, not in a negative
I'm
way.
positive.
In a positive way. I said that first part with a little bit of shade, and I had
It was
to,
all the
I had
shade.
to-
The sun, it's gone,
I
friends.
had
It's
to bring
gone.
it back. But yeah, so how to communicate an idea that's not clear, and I think
Yep.
one of the most helpful things that I can say at this point is just to talk about where you think you're headed, right? Just start talking about where you think you're headed. Start getting whatever that vision is in your head out into words, right? For someone else to evaluate.
Or write them
and
down.
and I think yeah, and I think more practically start sharing. If you can't like articulate where it is that you think it is, just start sharing stories about it. Because here's what I realized: when you start sharing a story about something, like when I say, hey, imagine just imagine a few years and we have a house, and that house has a front porch, and because I know Bree likes front porches, so she don't bark back, right?
Shady.
But like, if I were to say something that was like, in imagine we're on, I was gonna say a name of a street somewhere, but just in case anybody who lives there, I'm not gonna
Don't
say
say
it.
the name of the
But
street.
if I was gonna say a street and it was an unsafe street, Bree would automatically
Nope.
bark back to it.
I don't
So
want to stay there.
that's why I like being able to tell stories as like you're trying to communicate or cast whatever vision. And when I say cast vision, all I mean is basically verbalizing whatever the future state is supposed to be. Like verbalizing whatever the future state is supposed to be, or where it is that you're headed. Because again, when you tell stories, you allow somebody to be like, oh yes, like yes, and you can see if they're opting in, or you allow them to opt out and see where you need to shift it. But you have to start with something.
Yeah.
All right, you got to start with something. So I think that is the first. That's kind of the first observation that I think about when it's like, how do you navigate? How do you cast vision? How do you set a goal? How do you goal set when it's just like, man, I think I want to do this, but I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to do that. You just got to start. You got to pick something. You got to say it, and then it's gonna. You got to work towards it. It'll work or it won't work, but like you have to at least put something down on paper to measure against. I think that's kind of the first thing to talk about.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that kind of leads into the second thing in terms of communicating ideas that aren't clear. It's just basically taking the next best step that aligns with the current season that you're in. Josh said this like when we were dating, and I always just roll my eyes. He would say, hey, like,
Shady.
I know, just my eyes would get stuck up there. He would always say, like, I would prefer doing something and failing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said that. But like a few weeks ago, I was in the gym on my bike, and I was,
I was on your bike. Go ahead.
I was
Do you
like
bike
this.
again?
I was
Why
like
you
this.
bike the first time was like this?
I know. Well, we'll say that was elliptical.
Okay.
Well, I could have been listening to music and not be like this. But anyway, I was at the gym working out nonetheless. And I was listening to this interview, and it was with like a panel of women. And it was like Michelle Obama, George Clooney's wife. I don't want to say her name wrong.
Okay.
And like an activist and some other woman, or feminist activist. Two other women. And George Clooney's wife said, define failure as not trying. And so I was like, dang, like that's actually really good. So when it comes to this concept of like, hey, like let's take the next best step to
Mm.
align with the current season that we're in. Main concept is, or main practical step is, be okay with failing
Yeah.
as long as you try.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Because
yeah.
I like that because it's, you have to have a place to, you have to have a point to look back to evaluate against, to see whether or not you're progressing towards your desired future state or not.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing anything, you never have a place to measure back from.
Yeah, well, yes. But I think it's scary. And I think, as I'm not calling myself a perfectionist, but I'm really not.
I didn't say anything. That's
It's
the
it's
conviction of the
the
Lord that's sitting
I
upon
always
your
want to
heart.
say that, whatever. But what I will say is that it's hard not, yeah, I'm not trying to be perfect, but it's hard to fail because for me, it shuts me down to try again, if
Mm.
that makes sense. So I feel like it's being married and having to discuss something that may not be clear has been good at times, but then challenging for me at times, because I'm like, bro, like, you great about failing and trying again, but I'm like, when I fail, I need a few more months before I can gather the courage to pick it back up again. I think that's something that, like, you've encouraged me to do more of, especially like the last few months, but it's still scary.
Yeah,
But
and yes, I would agree with the sentiment that there is fear involved, but I think it's in how you frame it.
yeah.
And because yes, I appreciate you saying that. I do well in that, but I think what can come from the other side of that is discouragement too, right? So
Yeah.
it's just like I think that's one thing I wrestle with, where it's just like where you try things and try things and try things, and discouragement can creep in. But I think it's just all in how you frame your failure
Mm.
or whatever your action step that you
I'm
took.
not sure I understand.
No, Siri,
Oops, sorry.
we didn't ask you, Siri.
Oh, we married. Okay. Yep.
We didn't ask you. But I think it's all in how you frame it,
Yep.
that helps you kind of move forward from it. But I think that's a really good practical next step as far as just taking a step.
Yeah, and I mean, and here's the reality too, is that for me, I'm speaking for me, when I struggle with not trying because I think I fail, I'm ultimately saying, like, I don't trust God that when I do fail that he'll still provide.
100%.
And so I think, I mean, it's a trust thing for me, but I can see how even in marriage that can be like a thing where, like, okay, like, we gonna make this next step even though we don't know what's going on. I have to trust that we'll still navigate it well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and talk about being placed in a marriage places you uh, in that it forces you to have to define things
Yeah.
that may not be clear or whatever the case may be. Like like there's no way that you can move forward if you're not talking about these certain things,
Yeah.
and it gives you the opportunity to learn how to especially for me to learn how to like basically vocalize where you're headed, like track like state where you're headed so that other people could track with you, and can opt in or opt out. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's been interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, other tad bit is just having grace on each other, but also ourselves as we navigate not knowing what we're communicating about because we unclear.
Who's not clear? I'm just
We, we, we are not clear. Don't just be putting it on me. He be ready. He be ready.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm
Yes,
joking.
yes,
Yes. So
yes.
I think those are kind of the big points. I think how to communicate when things aren't clear, how to communicate your goals when they're not clear. I think you can start just talking about where you think you're headed. Talk about what it looks like in the most practical sense right now, even if it sounds imperfect, even if it doesn't sound complete.
Yeah.
Say it so that you can then reroute. And then I think number 2 is just taking that next step, like trying that next thing so that you have something that you can evaluate against going backwards. And that's all we got for this
Y'all see
time.
my hand raised. My hand raised. Just want to add this one quick thing. Because I'll be trying to add while he be on his, on
You do.
your flow.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, taking the next best step that aligns in your current season. I think the key word or the key phrase is current season.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes when we take next steps, I won't say, sometimes when I think about taking next steps, I think for future.
Yeah.
But that's not the season that we're in.
Correct.
See, that's all I had to say.
No, it is today. It's based off the information you have right now, based off of what you understand right now. What is that decision? What is that next step?
See, you're ready to cut me off.
You got good points, boo.
I do.
Well, we just want to thank y'all for hanging out with us in this conversation.
Yes, thank y'all.
We will see you next time.
See y'all.
Bye.